just because Halloween is past doesn't mean we can't keep Halloweening it up with today's Scooby-Doo Halloween special. Happy Halloween, Scooby-Doo, the original movie. This thing came out a couple years ago, and it stars a couple cool guest stars, such as Elvira and Bill Nye the Science Guy. You know, these Scooby-Doo movies, they remind me of the old TV show that came out during the 70s called the New Scooby-Doo Movies. They released those after the Where Are You thing went on for a little while, and it kind of season 3 was pretty fun. They didn't officially title it. They called it the Scooby-Doo Show and all that stuff. There was a thing going on in the 70s trying to... Hanna-Barbera was doing all sorts of Scooby-Doo stuff. We got the Scrappy-Doo. They brought him in and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. But then they made the Scooby-Doo movies, the new Scooby-Doo movies. These were about an hour in length, and they had a guest character, sometimes a fictional character, like a crossover from their previous, their other shows, like Speed Buggy, Josie and the Pussycats, Jabberjaw. I can't remember if he ever showed up, but the Globetrotters did. Don Knotts did. Batman did twice. There's a bunch of stuff that crossed over with the Scooby-Doo stuff, because Warner's and Hanna-Barbera had plenty of properties, and they often did a bunch of crossovers. They had animators that worked on multiple shows, so they put Easter eggs in multiple shows. This one's no different. Warner's owns the Cartoon Network brand. They own the Hanna-Barbera vault of shows. They own DC. So Warner's can put pretty much whatever they want, and they usually do, and in this it's no different. Why I'm getting at that is because the Scarecrow from DC, Batman's Scarecrow, is in this movie. It's probably because there is a continuity in these films, the movies. There's like a continuity, so as to say. I believe it began with the first final finale to the 13 Ghosts, the Curse of the 13 Ghosts. I can't remember if Return to Zombie Island or Curse of the 13 Ghosts came first, whichever one. But it started in that earlier era where they started making these movies, and there's a sort of continuity there because they had this sheriff guy who would show up at the beginning of the movie, such as in Return to Zombie Island and Curse of the 13 Ghosts, where they had this sheriff dude who came in and said, blah, 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 you guys should leave this to law enforcement, blah, 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 and then the sheriff would go away after taking the guy in the mask that the Mystery Incorporated just captured. And in this movie, that plot line from those previous films finally comes to a head in a very fun way. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, and this is going to be probably going to be a rambling video because I have no script for these things. I have no idea how I want to tackle this, so I'm going to be tackling it from all sorts of directions, and it's not going to be in order at all. It's just going to be as I think of it, which is how I like these chaotic videos to be. Just complete chaos, and you'll never know what to expect with the next section. We open this with, once again, Scooby-Doo and everybody going to capture the jack-o'-lantern ghost, the jack-o'-lantern dude who's flying around doing some stuff during an Elvira, for years, I've never seen the Elvira show or whatever, Mistress of the Dark thing. I've never even seen that, the movie, whatever. I know of the character, I know of the person, but I've never actually heard somebody actually say her name. So I've been pronouncing it as Elvira for years and years and years and years and years. But her name is Elvira, like Elmira, Elvira. So they've been pronouncing her name as Elvira all throughout this film, and I go, oh, so that's how her name is pronounced. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah, there's an Elvira Halloween parade going on in You know, I can't remember what they call it. Crystal Spring now? Is it Crystal Cove? Crystal Spring? You know, I used to remember what happened to Coolsville. You know, what happened to Coolsville? Let's go back to Coolsville because that's what I can remember. Coolsville. But now it's Crystal Cove, Crystal Springs. I believe this is made in the Mystery Incorporated era, so that's probably whatever. But, yeah. They're capturing the jack-o'-lantern dude, this guy right here. They capture him, and Velma unmasks him and says, "It was Scarecrow! Gotham's Scarecrow all along!" And then she removes the Scarecrow mask, which was under the jack-o'-lantern mask, and it turns out to be Dr. Crane from Gotham, Batman, BC villain. Yes, the Scooby-Doo people capture Dr. Crane. Okay. Well, alright. That was actually pretty fun to see him in here. I believe this came out after Scooby-Doo Batman Brave and the Bold. So I believe that might actually be canon to this film storyline. Many times people would often say, oh, these films have no canonicity. There's no connection between them all. You can watch them in any order. And from a certain point of view, that is true. You can watch them in any order. All of these stories tend to be self-contained. And the villain in this film, which does not turn out to be the Scarecrow, will end up explaining his evil, nefarious schemes and you don't need to have seen his scenes from the previous movies, Return to Zombie Island, Curse of the 13 Ghosts, etc. You only have to need to have seen those to understand his plot in this film. So even though it has canonicity and it takes on some scenes and stuff from previous stuff, whatever, you don't need to see them. So they capture the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow says that he's been framed. He says that Velma is his intellectual equal, and he's surprised that she didn't figure this out, blah, 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 blah. The FBI takes Dr. Crane away to go back to Arkham Asylum, etc., and then Scooby-Doo and Shaggy-Doo go off on their own for trick-or-treating, because of course they want some food, they want some candy, it's the usual thing, and they end up finding a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns, toxic waste, and the Joker's fear gas. And when you combine all three of them, you get a bunch of pumpkins that come to life and start chasing our heroes, our cowardly heroes, and they start running away. They go to Velma, and they say, there's a ghost, pumpkins, they're flying pumpkins, they go. And Velma's going like, guys, slow down, explain yourselves. And then they explain themselves, and Velma doesn't believe them, because she's playing the Daphne trope from the pup named Scooby-Doo, which another, speaking of Easter eggs, Red Harry is in this. An adult Red Harry who owns a scare shop now, who has been driving a scare shop truck, is seen trying to escape the Scarecrow jack-o'-lantern ghost at the opening of this film. So that was fun. We don't get to see him again afterwards, but it was nice to see that little Easter egg, a little callback to a pup named Scooby-Doo. But yeah, in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, it was Daphne who was the one that said there was no such thing as ghosts, and it was Velma who was the one trying to scientifically explain the existence of ghosts, if ghosts happen to exist, and then she would scientifically explain the ectoplasmic phenomenon and all that other stuff, and actually explain the compositional makeup and all that stuff. That was Velma's character in Pup Named Scooby-Doo, but you know, they experiment with the characters who aren't Shaggy and Scooby. These two tend to be the same no matter what you do. Though Shaggy does change to varying degrees. He could be a little bit more mature and take on a Fred type of role, as well as being a scared foodie, like during the Scrappy and Scooby era, before Daphne came along. And he would also take on this kind of more mature role during the 13 Ghosts era, some of the Red Shirt Shaggy eras. He's still the Shaggy that we know and love, but he did have some changes too. Scooby, though, he remains pretty much the same, no matter what. Although, we definitely know that how he speaks has changed over the years, because the original voice actor that has been voicing Scooby all the way up to, I believe, the 13 Ghosts era. I could be wrong. He might have also returned for Zombie Island, but I can't be quite sure. I think that guy stopped I can't remember the names. I'm not good with names, as you all know that. But after that dude left, Frank Welker, who had been voicing Fred since the start of the show, like the very start, Where Are You? First episode ever of Scooby-Doo, Frank Welker has been voicing Fred Jones, and he is still voicing Fred Jones today! So they get him to voice Scooby. So now he's voicing one of the background characters and the main character, so he is pretty much irreplaceable. He gets top billing because he's paid for 2 roles, sometimes even multiple roles of NPCs and other voice sound effects. Because, Frank Welker is incredibly talented. He is like Jim Cummings. He is super talented, very varied voice. You remember Futurama? He voices Nibbler. You know the Nibbler guy that goes... That guy. That's Frank Welker. But yeah, he's voicing Scooby. He's been voicing Scooby since What's New Scooby-Doo, I believe. But yeah, where was I going with that? The Scooby character has changed the way he speaks. The original voice actor would have a lot of R, rolling the R's with the slurs. How a dog would talk, but you could still have it sound all R-ish, Raggy. He calls him Raggy, but now when Frank Welker voices him, he says Shaggy. He does a lot of his S's are no longer R rollings as often, which I do notice. I've noticed it since What's New Scooby-Doo, but I got used to it. But I've been watching old Scooby-Doo era, a lot of old Scooby-Doo era lately, so I have noticed it even more after watching the newer movies again. But yeah, the characters, these two haven't changed. But the other 3, going back to what I was saying earlier about how they often experiment with Fred, Daphne, and Velma because they're pretty much the background characters in the show. They've always have been. Outside of maybe Fred, who did compose the traps during the Where Are You era, and Daphne would often be the damsel in distress, and Velma would be the one who was smart, who found all the clues. That was how they worked back in the original era. Then they started to experiment with the Daphne character after Fred and Velma left. She started to become a little bit far more capable. She was still a little bit of an airhead, but she found clues. She was more mature. She was more calm and composed. She wasn't always the damsel, but she would still be the damsel. And it was up to Scrappy and Shaggy and Scooby to go get her. But she's been evolving all throughout these years, and pretty much Daphne has now become, as of Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, since it is taking canonicity, chronological order, from The Curse of the 13th Ghost. When we watched Curse of the 13th Ghost, and you can see my previous video on that, I explained how Daphne has pretty much become a Buffy the Vampire Slayer capable type of lady, even in the the James Gunn era movies, the live-action movies, where they actually got Lillard, who was playing Shaggy in those movies, and he was so good as Shaggy that they asked him to voice the character after Casey Kasem left. So Lillard is voicing Shaggy now, which is awesome. But yeah, going back to that, in those 2 James Gunn movies, they evolved the Daphne character into this Buffy the Vampire Slayer type of character, probably because Sarah Michelle Gellar was playing Daphne. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I don't know if Season 7 was still going on at the time, or if it had already finished up, but Buffy was still pretty big, so I guess that's why they made Daphne so capable of a character, being played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And then they made Fred Jones the one who said ghosts aren't real. I don't remember if Fred was the one who came up with the traps in those movies. It's been a few years since I've watched the live-action movies, admittedly. I should probably watch them again, but the backlog's just infinite. It's infinite. It never ends, right? Well, Velma now is the one who's taking on the role this time of the skeptic. And I believe they've kept her as this skeptic since the Mystery Incorporated era. But I honestly, I would have preferred if they gave that skepticism to Daphne. It made sense for Daphne's character in a pup named Scooby-Doo to be the skeptic, but since this is going off of Curse of the 13th Ghost canonicity, because Thursday the 13th Ghost had references to the Red Shirt Shaggy era with the 13th Ghost of Scooby-Doo, and they actually counted real ghosts and ghouls and monsters. That means Daphne is familiar with real ghosts and ghouls and monsters, so it would make sense for her in this canon timeline to not be the skeptic at this time. So it makes sense if they have to give that trope to one of these three characters, it would have to be either Fred or Velma. And since Fred is just a lovable dork, we can't make him the bad guy. He can't be mean. So despite my disdain at giving this trope to Velma again, it does work. Admittedly, I don't like that they have to give a skeptic at all at this point, but it would make sense to have Velma be the type of person to go like, I'm going to prove that ghosts don't exist. That's how she was in Curse of the 13th Ghost. She was trying to prove that the ghosts didn't exist. She wasn't super meanie face about it, though she was pretty frowny face about it, but she was a little bit more scientifically open-minded about this, trying to, like she was in Pup Named Scooby-Doo era, blah, 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 blah. But whatever. The jack-o'-lantern ghosty thingamajiggies, they're ghost heads, they start chasing everybody, they start to destroy the town. A bunch of earthquakes happen, and suddenly, this film turns into Mad Max. We have Scooby and Shaggy in, taking a road trip with in an older car with a father and a son that they saved during the Dr. Crane opening segment. They're in that car. Velma and Fred are in the Mystery Machine, a new Mystery Machine, because during the opening segment, the original Mystery Machine gets totaled during the fight with with Scarecrow. Which it made sense that they would have a lot harder of a time to take out Scarecrow, so at least they gave Scarecrow the win of destroying the Mystery Machine. So Bill Nye comes in with the save. He brings them the Mystery Machine X, which is a big machine of the Mystery Machine. So Fred's not too happy about this. He likes his old car. He wants his old Mystery Machine. So they still give him that. Fred has been obsessed with the Mystery Machine for years now. So I don't care. He's a lovable dork with that. Leave him alone. So he's very... he misses the Mystery Machine. He doesn't like this new Mystery Machine X. But Velma loves it because she's the science girl. She's always been the science nerdy girl. So she's loves the Mystery Machine X, and she's bantering science with Bill Nye, who is on the dashboard as a hologram, and the Mystery Machine X is capable of autopilot, so they can all whatever, which is great. So now we have two cars. So where's Daphne? Well, Daphne runs into Elvira, and they take on some ghosty jack-o'-lantern, jackalope thing, jack-o'-ghost, jack-o'-spooks, and then they get into her hearse, Elvira's hearse, and they zoom off in behind the Mystery Machine X. So we have three cars on the highway at high speed running away from Mad Max villains. The Jackalope guys have have taken over all of the cars in Coolsville, Crystal Cove, Crystal Springs, Crystal Lake. They have taken all of the cars and vans that we've seen in the opening segment of the film. They've all commandeered them, and they're all driving them, chasing these three cars. And for the next 20-30 minutes, this is just one long chase scene. It's Mad Max, man. it was pretty fun. It was really crazy and wacky, and it made sense. It made nonsense, but it was great. It was very fun. I had a lot of fun with this Mad Max chase scene, and I love that they did that. At the end, the three cars that they're in get totaled, and they have to escape on foot into the forest, into a graveyard, where they make a final stand against the bad guys. Velma ends up letting Crane go because she realizes that Scarecrow was not responsible for the opening segment and all the other stuff with the drones and the hijacked stuff. despite Crane having a bunch of drones and trying to do all sorts of fear gassy gas stuff. But yeah, despite all that, Velma lets him go because they have a bigger fish to fry, and they need his help to take it out. And Scarecrow oddly saves the Mystery Incorporated crew from certain destruction instead of just bailing out of the movie entirely. Instead, he saves them and takes on the Jackalope guys, and we see him get taken. And then, so our mystery crew runs in the forest, blah, blah, blah. They face the bad guys, and Velma figures out what's going on. She figures out that it was actually that sheriff dude all along. The sheriff dude ends up being the guy from the previous movies who was telling them to stop doing blah, 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 blah. And he was actually a previous villain that they unmasked. He was some sort of tech dude with drones, and the jackalopes turned out to be his drones with jack-o'-lanterns on them with glowing purple lighty lights. They're fake ooze, fake toxic waste, fake fear gas. He basically staged this entire thing to get revenge on the Mystery Incorporated crew, and I guess destroy the entire town as well, because the entire town did pretty much get destroyed. Which, I like the destruction, but it's pretty sad to see their town of Crystal Coolsville destroyed, so that's pretty bad. But yeah, they're able to stop him and all that good stuff, and then the film ends. But we're not done yet. I love these new Warner's DVD cases, these new Warner's hard copies, right? Because they come with extras, bonus features. They usually pull a few related episodes from previous stuff related to this IP. For example, if they make a Batman movie now, they would pull some related Batman the Animated Series episodes relating to the villain that Batman had to deal with in that movie. For example, in The Doom That Came to Gotham, the new one of the newer Batman movies that dealt with Ra's al Ghul, to my knowledge. Yeah, dealt with Ra's al Ghul. Well, in the bonus features, there were 2 Batman the Animated Series episodes where Batman dealt with Ra's al Ghul, which was pretty cool. So in this, a Halloween-themed movie, in the bonus features were 3 Halloween episodes. There was one from What's New Scooby-Doo, the Halloween special. There was the Halloween special from a pup named Scooby-Doo, which was pretty nice. And then there was this Halloween special from Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Be Cool Scooby-Doo was the one Scooby-Doo show that I had never seen a single episode of. I took one look at the animation style, and I was completely turned off to it. I didn't want to watch a single episode of it. I didn't want to know anything about it. I didn't care. I just did not watch a single episode of Be Cool Scooby-Doo because I just did not like the animation. I didn't like the redesigns for the characters. But I decided to watch this Be Cool Scooby-Doo episode, and I ended up oddly loving it. I'm still on the fence. I love the writing, the script, the jokes, everything. It harkens back to what the old Where Are You era segments. In the Scooby-Doo Where Are You era, all the way up to the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and I think even in some of the Where Are You, in some of the What's New Scooby-Doo episodes, they used to have the mystery gang, particularly these 2, when they're being chased by the villain. They would disguise themselves and try to trick the villain into something to distract them as they try to escape. Like, sometimes they would dress up as chefs to make some food for the villain, and they would sit the villain down making all sorts of food, and then the villain would complain about the food, and they would bring the chef in, and Scooby would be the chef, and he'd make some sort of blah blah blah, and the villain would be falling for it, and then they run away, and the villain goes, "Oh wait, I've been tricked!" And then they come out, then he chases after them again. It was great. And this episode pulled that trope from that old era back in. Scooby and Shaggy disguised themselves again to try to trick the villain, which turns out to be a witch lady. And it ended up working. And they actually end up calling back to how they couldn't believe that actually worked. And they ran away, and it was great. I loved the writing. I loved the jokes. And they brought back the original cast from What's New Scooby-Doo. I believe it's Mindy Cohn, Grey Delisle, Frank Welker, as we know, and Lillard. I believe in this era of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, they bring in Lillard, or is it the movies? I don't know which one happened first, Be Cool Scooby-Doo or one of the annual Scooby-Doo movies. It's probably one of the movies that once Casey Kasem decided to step down after What's New Scooby-Doo and about 4 or 5 of the movies that were still going on yearly during What's New Scooby-Doo. Then they bring in Lillard to replace Casey Kasem to keep voicing Shaggy, which after the switch you would notice the difference, but then after a few episodes or after a few movies you completely accept Lillard as the Shaggy character. So I completely accept and like this character, even though I prefer the Casey Kasem of the Where Are You era, because he would make all sorts of jokes. Shaggy was a jokester. He kept on making all sorts of dad jokes, and I really missed they really missed an opportunity for Shaggy to make a very terrible joke in this episode. There's just a bunch of cans of raisins that they find in this spooky house. And Fred first finds it when he's a kid, when he first encounters this spooky house. And then, like, 10 years later, they find it again. They find the creepy house, and Shaggy and Scooby are in the house. And there's a can of raisins. They missed an opportunity for Shaggy to pick up the can of raisins and turn to Scooby and say, this reminds me of a joke. And he would say, why does the warlock like raisins? And Scooby would look at him weirdly, and Shaggy would try to stop himself from laughing at his own terrible joke. And he would say, 'cause he be raising the dead. And then Scooby would go, oh, I don't get it. They missed that opportunity. If they used that joke, that would have been perfect. But I made it for them. So I made the terrible joke for you. So feel free to groan and moan and feel pain at that all you like. But it was amazing. It was a perfect missed opportunity for that joke to land, to be missed. But Shaggy was known for those types of terrible jokes and Where Are You? And I loved him for it. But I liked this episode. I liked the writing. The voice actors were still there, and they were still voicing the characters like it was the original animation. Well, I just found it to be jarring. I found it to be very jarring. Mainly due to the fact that during the Be Cool Scooby-Doo era, they were still making annual Scooby-Doo movies using the original character concept designs. So why would they change that for Be Cool Scooby-Doo? I still hate the animation. These animation designs, rather. The designs, not the actual animation. The animation is actually pretty cool. The house, the witch special effects of the witch in the episode, all of it was really good. But I still hate the animation, the character designs, the character concept designs of the Mystery Gang. I just don't think they fit this dynamic. Scooby-Doo is a show from the 60s, and even today into the 2020s with stuff like Happy Halloween, Scooby-Doo, and The Sword and the Scoob, Warner's has realized that we need to keep that 60s/70s aesthetic for the character designs in order for this show to work. When you try to modernize Scooby-Doo by changing the animation to some sort of modern-day other cartoon going on at the time, it doesn't work. It completely falls apart. It fell apart completely for me at any rate. It just took me out of the show. But the writing is really good. The voice acting is really fun, really good. Frank Welker is at his best here. That Be Cool Scooby-Doo Halloween episode was a Fred episode, pretty much, and I loved that. Fred needs more stuff to do, and I love that they're giving him more stuff to do. In Frank and Scoob, he had a big arc in that. He has a big arc in this movie too, It's great to see Fred doing stuff. I love that they're giving more stuff to these other characters, to Fred, Velma, and Daphne. I love that they're doing that. And I love that they're still giving most of the screen time to Shaggy and Scooby, because it is their dynamic, pretty much. But yeah, the What's New Scooby-Doo Halloween episode is also fantastic. And the Pup Named Scooby-Doo Halloween episode is also fantastic. I've seen them plenty. I haven't seen the What's New Scooby-Doo one, honestly. I have seen season 1 of What's New Scooby-Doo so many times as a kid. They would rerun it, but in the later seasons, I don't know, I guess I just didn't see them. But the Halloween Scooby-Doo, What's New Scooby-Doo special featured Kiss, and Kiss actually showed up in it, and they were singing "Shout It Out Loud," and it was a good scene. When the ghosties show up and Kiss is playing on the stage, I believe it was Space Ace who turns to Starchild and says, "Hey man, what should we do?" And Starchild says, "The same thing we always do, man. Keep playing until the cops come." So they keep playing while all this chaos is going on. It was an excellent episode. I have no problems with What's New Scooby-Doo. That episode, though, was bringing back that retro "Where Are You" feel. There was even a laugh track in that episode. All of the jokes had a small little laugh track. It was very quiet. It was very mild compared to the first season of "Where Are You?" But it was there, and I loved it. It was fantastic to see that come back. Pup Named Scooby-Doo one, I've seen that one though. The Halloween Pup Named Scooby-Doo episode, I've seen it plenty of times. I don't need to go over it. But yeah, that's this DVD case. That's why I like collecting the hard copies for the Scooby-Doo movies, because you don't just get the movie, you get some bonus episodes as well. Sometimes stuff that you've never seen, sometimes stuff that they've never even released before. And that was fantastic to me personally. So I would say that Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo is a success. At least to me it was. I love that these movies are pulling the new Scooby-Doo movies trick, because usually with each one of these lately, they bring in a character that was pretty popular, or a real-life figure, or a crossover character. They brought Batman back for Brave and the Bold. They brought Vincent Van Gogh back for Curse of the 13th Ghost. I don't know if they brought anybody back for Return to Zombie Island, except for characters from Return to Zombie Island. But, it was really fun to see them do that, okay, on the occasion, to bring in these stuff. You know, they made another movie with Kiss. I mentioned that in a previous episode, in a previous Scooby-Doo themed video. But yeah, I think this is a success, and I really want to see them continue to do more stuff like this. Bring in some more celebrity figures. Keep these movies like that new Scooby-Doo movies aesthetic. Keep this animation. Keep the strong dialogue, the strong voice acting. The voice cast is banded together, except for the Velma's voice actors. Mindy Cohn has left and has been replaced by Kate Micucci. I'm honestly fine with Kate Micucci. I have no problems with her voice acting. But you do feel that her voice actress doesn't have as strong of a dynamic in terms of tone and inclination and all that stuff to the other voice actors. But with Shaggy, Scooby, Fred, Daphne, their voice actors, those three guys have been together for over 20 years now. So not Lillard. He hasn't been with it for 20 years. He's been for about 10 to 15 years. But Gray Delisle has been Daphne for a very long time, since What's New Scooby-Doo. She and Frank Welker. Everybody loves Frank Welker. Everybody could work with him fine. But the dynamic between the voice actors was very good. That's what I want to say. Even Kate Micucci as Velma, she's still very good. I can still hear her as a Velma type of voice. It might be a little bit more whinier now, but I think she could work with it, and I think she could do this role really well going forward. Give her a chance, you know? But yeah, Good movie. I want to see more like this. I have not seen Sword in the Scoob yet. I have to collect that one to grab it. I have to get Sword in the Scoob to watch that one. But I'm running out of new Scooby-Doo movies that I've not seen before. I'm getting them all. I'm getting through them all. But yeah, the next one is probably going to be Sword in the Scoob if I ever track that one down. But yeah, give this one a watch. I don't know how to end these things.